revolution has begun, and war has broken out across the city. As the remains of the Imperial forces retreat, a new enemy has come to take their place. Soulless androids emerge from tears in the warp to fight against the zealots of the Bladed Cog. Will the cultists be able to fend off the mechanical monsters, or will the Necrons of the Heirotek dynasty capture another exhibit for their gallery?
Hey there everybody, Blaine here, and today I'm bringing in my Wyrmblade kill team. In this battle report, I'm opting to bring in my neophyte leader with a power pick and master-crafted auto pistol. Alongside him are a grenade launcher and a Weber gunner, mining laser and seismic cannon gunners of the heavy variety, an icon bearer wielding a shotgun, along with 4 normal neophytes with shotguns, and finally 2 agents, a Kellermorph and a Sanctus sniper, to give me the best possible shooting. I also decided to equip my operatives in the following ways: climbing equipment on both my heavy gunners and my grenade launcher gunner, a blasting charge on a normal neophyte, and 4 cult knives spread across my team to help boost their melee capabilities against the Necron scum.
Hey there everybody, Nate here, and today I'm bringing the Heirotek circle for today's battle report. Leading my kill team, I have a Psychomancer with the Nightmare Shroud and Harbinger of Despair cryptech actions. Following him into battle are his trusty pets, the Plasmacyte Accelerator and the Plasmacyte Reanimator. Honestly, the 2 most important models in this entire team. Following those 3 into battle, I have the Apprentek, an Immortal Despotek with Gauss Blasters, and 3 Immortal Guardians also with Gauss Blasters. Now, I do want to make a quick note right here. I'm actually proxying these models. They're technically modeled with Tesla carbines, but for today's battle report, I'm actually using the Gauss Blasters. As for my team's equipment, I'm bringing in a Phase Shifter for my Cryptech, a Devourer Nanoscarab to get around all of Blaine's models hiding in Conceal, and 2 Hyperphase Blades. I start by placing my first barricade right next to the Orc Stronghold.
I start by placing my first barricade on the upper left-hand corner of the map.
I then place my second barricade right under the Orc Stronghold.
I then place my second barricade underneath the Orc Stronghold closest to my deployment.
Now that it's time to start putting down models, I begin by placing my Plasmacyte Accelerator behind the pipe near my drop zone. I then place his brother, the Plasmacyte Reanimator, behind the Orc Stronghold. Then I put each of these models in Conceal.
I start the deployment step of this battle report by spending 1 CP to put 2 operatives into hiding, which will be my Icon Bearer and my Neophyte with a blasting charge. I then get to place my first group of models, which are all 3 of the remaining normal Neophytes, all with Conceal orders spread across my deployment zone.
For my next group, I place down one of my Immortals next to the Plasmacyte Reanimator. I then place my Apprentek right next to the Plasmacyte Reanimator. Then I place another one of my Immortals behind the Stronghold next to the Apprentek. Lastly, I put all these models in Conceal as well.
I then proceed to tediously place my Seismic Cannon Heavy Gunner, my Weber Gunner, and my Leader all on Conceal orders.
And for my third group, I place down my Despotek right behind the pipe. I then place my last Immortal next to the Despotek. Then I place down my Cryptech next to the Plasmacyte Accelerator and one of my Immortals. Lastly, all these models are also in Conceal.
My final group for deployment includes my Sanctus Sniper, my Grenade Launcher Gunner, my Kellermorph, and my Mining Laser Heavy Gunner, all on Conceal because I can flip their orders in the first turning point due to Cold Ambush.
Once all the models have been placed, it's time for the scouting phase, and after an epic fist bump, we both revealed the recon option. Because Blaine's the attacker, he gets initiative. Blaine dashes his Sanctus Sniper up, and then I dash one of my Immortals.
Hi, Blaine here. We're going into this first turning point, and I feel pretty confident. I think the sniper, I got initiative, and I think the sniper is in a prime spot to one-shot one of his immortals right away, which Nate might not be happy about, but we'll see. I did my best to try to deploy in a way that his Cryptek can't just flip orders and get like a huge alpha strike on me. In fact, I don't think that there is a spot that he can actually get a shot off at the very beginning at all. So that's pretty great. Always love when he can't do a really good opening play. So, but just knowing Nate, I'm pretty sure I know what he took, and I'm pretty sure it was all recon with either unearthed artifacts as his tac op, or the one where he has to get 3 guys within 6 inches of my drop zone. Or 6 inches of the center, I think it is. I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be kind of easy to deny him recon because of the recover item. He has 3 guys that fly, but 2 of them don't want to die. The plasmacytes, so it might be a little hard. And his whole team is concealed, so he's not using implacable march or whatever. So his movement right now is really bad. So I'll just do my best to score my tac ops really quick. I've got guys in hiding to do that for me, so we'll just have to see how this first turning point plays out and avoid a really big blast or something. So that's all I've got.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Battle Report. We're going into turning point 1, Wyrmblade versus Heirotek Circle, and I'm feeling pretty excited. I actually have a good amount of... I've played him for a little while. I did a whole narrative campaign, which a little bit different, but I'm feeling pretty confident. I'm using my favorite Cryptek, the Psychomancer. I really love his abilities, and I think here it's going to do really well. I have the ability to turn off Cult Ambush, which is just the worst. Cult Ambush, if you're playing, it's really good. If you're fighting, it's a bit of a bummer. So turning that off is going to be really nice. Keep the longevity of my Cryptek a little bit longer. For my faction tac up 2, I'm feeling really good too, because I can just kind of keep that on my edge of the board without any worries. Just have my plasma sight go up, keep it on it. Feeling pretty confident. So as a whole, I'm really excited for this battle report. It's going to be fun. We've played this a few times, but I think it's going to be a fun one. So stay tuned and let's see how it goes. Moving from the scouting phase and into the strategy phase, Blaine starts by playing One with the Shadows. I then pass, followed by Blaine passing. From there, we move on to tac ops, and Blaine reveals Gather Surveillance. Then I reveal Recover Item and place it right next to one of the ruins. Blaine then reveals Stock Target, and he chooses my Apprentek. And then lastly, I reveal Unearthed Artifact, where I place the token on the edge of one of the Orc strongholds.
To start off this match, I activate my Sanctus Sniper, following out a plan I had since the very beginning. I dash him up to the edge of the Octarius building, using his familiar soul sight to take away obscuring on the Necron warrior in front of him. I take an unobscured shot. I start off by rolling 3 hits and 1 miss, but because I swapped his order to an engaged order, because of Cult Ambush, I get to reroll any of 1 result, this time being 1s, and reroll that into another normal hit. Unfortunately for me, Nate rolls all 3 of his saves of 3 up and only takes 3 damage.
For my first activation, I begin by selecting my Plasmacyte Accelerator. I use his ability to give my Cryptek an APL for free, and then I move him to the edge of one of the Orc strongholds.
For the second activation of this game, I decide to activate 2 Neophytes, which have GA2. Both of them are going to move up the board to my closest objectives and secure them for 1 APL.
Next up, I activate my Cryptek. I begin by using his command ability to command my Plasmacyte to perform a free mission action on the point. I then move him up and cast Harbinger of Despair on Blaine's back point. I then dash him back just a little bit and cast Nightmare Shroud.
I then proceed to activate the last remaining Neophyte that's on the board and move him onto the last remaining objective on my side. But unfortunately, due to Nate's pesky little Psychomancer, I can't claim that objective this turning point.
Next up is my Apprentek, who I simply move through the door and behind a barricade.
My Weber Gunner then moves up to the Octarius building in front of him.
Selecting one of my Immortals next, I move him behind the stronghold.
To follow this up, my leader activates and moves up to the Octarius building.
Selecting another immortal, I simply move him up behind the big scrap pile.
My grenade launcher gunner then proceeds to do what my Weber did and moves up onto the door of the Octarius building.
Next up is my Despotek, who I move dash up behind the door on the Orc stronghold.
I then move my seismic cannon heavy gunner into the middle of the board in hopes I get initiative and can do something spicy in the second turning point.
Activating my last immortal, I just move him up behind his little buddy.
For my next activation, my Kelomorph is just going to move and dash around my mining laser and tuck himself into the oil rig on the right side of my board.
And lastly, I dash my Plasmacite Reanimator right between the Despotek and the Immortal.
Getting down to the last few activations on my side of the board, my mining laser just moves up next to my Kelomorph. And this is when I decide to bring both my operatives out from hiding. First is going to be the Neophyte with the blasting charge, proceeding to then dash after he comes in to get on the objective and stalk his target. And finally, my Icon Bearer is also going to come out of hiding and get into a spot where he is just able to dash up and gather surveillance this turning point.
At the end of turning point 1, it's time to roll initiative. I roll a 3 and Blaine rolls a 4, so he has initiative for the next turning point. Okay, so at the end of turning point 1, things are actually very, very close right now. Heirotek Circle currently has 3 primary VP with 0 secondary. I have all my models remaining and 4 CP to use. Wyrmblade, on the other hand, has 2 primary VP with 2 secondaries. They have all their models but only have 2 CP to use. That means we have a 3-4 split moving into the second turning point.
All right, moving into turning point 2. Turning point 1 didn't really go as planned. That Necron, or that Immortal survived with 8 wounds or 7 wounds and healed up to 9 at the beginning of this turn. So Sniper definitely didn't do as much as I wanted them to, and I kind of wasted the CP. But it's fine. I mean, I didn't realize that Nate didn't have an order flip at the beginning of the turn, and so I used one with Shadows to make light terrain obscuring in hopes of that deterring a future shot in the first turn, and just completely blanked on Nate not having an order flip. So kind of a waste of CP, but I think in the end it doesn't really matter too much anyway. I'm covering bases that I should be in any other game, so just kind of force a habit. Otherwise, I've set up operatives in weird little spots to kind of threat project. I'm going in 1 less CP on the main objective, or VP on the main objective, but I'm 2 ahead on TAC Ops. So I should keep up with Nate here, and hopefully I can snag a couple free points because of a meticulous plan, allowing all the neophytes to use or do mission actions for free. Hopefully, maybe getting a point or 2 of his later in the turn. Other than that, I'm just going to try to shoot things and get them off the board. First activation is probably going to be the Seismic Cannon, deleting the Apprentice, hopefully. So we'll see what happens. I'm curious what Nate's going to do, because he's got 5 CP and a dream. So,
okay, so it was a pretty good turning point 1. I took a shot, but in the end it really didn't matter. That was some lazy positioning on my end, and Blaine had telegraphed it with the dash, so should have been a little bit more careful. But as a whole, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I wish I kind of moved up a little bit more, but I'm a little nervous about Blaine's abilities. Luckily, we both kind of moved up to our barrack or strongholds. Didn't really do much, which I think is better for me, to be honest. I have more primary so far. I think getting my secondaries is going to be kind of a walk in the park. I'm feeling pretty good. But this is going to turn into a bloodbath very quickly, and I'm feeling all right, to be honest. I have a pretty good spot with my Cryptek. I'm feeling really, really good when it comes to some of my positions with some of my other units. So we'll see how this goes. But I'm feeling pretty confident. I have 5 CP, so if need be, I can just kind of burn those if I need to. So we'll see how we do. So, moving into the strategy phase of Turning Point 2, Blaine begins by playing Meticulous Plan. I then play Undying Androids and Intractable March. After that, it's time for TAC Ops. I reveal Secure Vantage, and then Blaine nominates one of his neophytes for Gather Surveillance.
I did get initiative like I wanted to here, so I go ahead and activate my Seismic Cannon Heavy Gunner for that spicy little play. I dash him up just enough to get within 2 inches of Nate's Apprentek and blast him. I end up with 2 normal hits and a fail, re-rolling the dice that didn't sit quite flush in the dice mat into a crit. I then re-roll the 1 as per Cult Ambush into another crit. Now, due to having P1 on the shortwave profile of the Seismic Cannon, Nate is not able to get 3 defense dice here. He saves 1 for his strategic ploy and rolls his second dice into another save. This does mean that 8 damage total goes through with both crits, putting his Apprentek down to 4 health.
Activating one of my immortals, I scramble charge over the junk pile into the neophyte who has the blasting charge. Attacking him with my weapon's bayonet, I roll 4s on 3s and get a 6 and a 5. But because I have the Hyperphase Blade, I actually have 2 crits. Blaine is able to roll 2 hits. After all the rolling is done, I begin by hitting Blaine with one of my crits. He hits me for 3 damage with one of his normals, and then I hit with my second crit, killing his model.
My next activation is my Icon Bearer, who's going to move up within 2 inches of Nate's Accelerator Plasma Sight and blast it with a shotgun. I proceed to roll 2 normal hits and a crit, but unfortunately, due to Nate's Psychomancer's ability, Harbinger of Despair, I cannot reroll any dice for Cult Ambush, and I have to retain my crit as a normal hit. Again, due to Nate's strategic ploy he played, he's able to retain a normal save without rolling because he is not in cover, and then proceeds to roll his other save into a crit save, only taking 3 damage from the shotgun.
Next up is another one of my immortals, who I move up and use to shoot one of Blaine's neophytes with his Gauss Blaster. The weapon is 4 zone 3s with AP 1, and I roll a crit and a hit. Blaine isn't able to roll any saves, so after 9 damage, that's another cultist dead.
To follow this up, I think I need some revenge for my fallen comrade, and my Mining Laser Heavy Gunner decides to take a shot onto Nate's Immortal. I start out by rolling a normal hit and a crit, and re-rolling one of my fails into another fail because of Cult Ambush. But I CP re-roll one of my other fails into a crit. That's what we call progress. Nate only gets 2 defense dice here because of AP 1 on the Mining Laser. He retains 1 for cover and rolls a second dice into a fail, resulting in a dead Immortal. Unfortunately for me, Nate chooses to use Reanimation Protocol here on this Immortal, hoping to bring it back in the next turning point.
Activating my Plasmacite Accelerator next, I give my leader an APL for free, and then I use both of his actions to perform Unearth Artifice.
For my next activation, I choose to activate the 2 remaining neophytes on the board. The first just moves up the board onto the oil rig to stay on concealed cover. The second one, with the help of Meticulous Plan, is able to secure the objective with 1 APL, moving around the edge of the crate to get in his spot for Gather Surveillance.
Activating my Plasmacite Reanimator next, I just fly him over the stronghold and behind the barricade.
Seeing this as a chance to be a little bit more aggressive, my Weber Gunner moves through the door and onto the crate in heavy cover to prepare for the next turning point.
Next, I activate my Plasmacite Reanimator and just fly him through the door behind the barricade.
My Grenade Launcher Gunner also moves into the building, but this time into some cover underneath the Octarius vantage point.
Selecting my Despotek next, I charge him into Blaine's Heavy Gunner. Attacking him with my bayonet, I'm rolling 4s on 2s and get a crit and 2 hits. Blaine is able to roll 2 hits, and I begin combat by attacking him with one of my crits. Blaine hits me for 3 damage. I then parry out his other hit and deal a total of 7 damage to his model, taking out one of his hardest hitters.
Seeking some well-deserved revenge, my leader activates and charges Nate's Despotek through the door of the Octarius building. I then proceed to fight, knowing that Nate is already rolling on 2s. I roll and get 2 normal hits and a crit, re-rolling my fail because of Cult Ambush back into a fail. But because of rending, I do get to turn one of my normals into a crit. In the end, it was just not enough damage to put down the Cruel Despotek, and after the bloody exchange of blows, my leader is left at 2 wounds and Nate's Despotek is left at 1 wound.
Next up is my Psychomancer. Because he has the fly ability, I move him up and over the Orc Stronghold and onto my recover item token. I then use his command ability for free to force my Despotek to fight Blaine's leader. Now, all my attacks actually hit, but it doesn't really matter because the first strike is enough to kill the leader. I then cast Harbinger of Despair and Nightmare Shroud, and then use his last APL to capture the point.
Finally being cleared up of engagement range, my sniper is able to put a shot down range at the Immortal who took out my Seismic Cannon Heavy Gunner in the beginning of the turn. I end up rolling 2 normal hits and a fail, having to re-roll that almost crit because it just wasn't sitting flat into a 3rd normal hit. And due to Nate being able to retain a normal save because he is not in cover, as well as being able to CP re-roll a fail into a normal save, he is able to escape unscathed.
And lastly, I move my 3rd Immortal up and onto the edge of the Orc Stronghold.
To follow up, after much deliberation, my Kellermorph moves within 2 inches of Nate's Psychomancer and takes 2 back-to-back shots with his dual pistols. I start the first shot off by rolling 4 normal hits, and due to said Psychomancer, cannot re-roll because of Cold Ambush. Nate then proceeds to save all 3 of his defense dice with flying colors, only taking 3 damage from that first shot. As the second shot comes around, it's a little bit more in my favor as I roll 5 normal hits, not being able to retain any crits due to the Psychomancer, and let you be entertained by one of the best moments to happen on our channel to end the turning point.
Oh, I fucking called it. I'm so glad that's recording, bro.
That's incredible. So, what is this currently?
You save 1, it's currently 12. And it's 3 apiece.
Okay, I'm going to spend 1 to reroll.
Okay, roll 2.
That's making it bad.
Time for initiative again, and I roll a 6 while Blaine rolls a 2, so that means I have initiative going into turning point 3. So, at the end of turning point 2, things are still relatively close. Heirotek Circle has pulled ahead just a little bit with 7 primary VP and 2 secondary. I currently have 7 out of 8 models remaining, but technically I have them all with Reanimation Protocol. I do, however, only have 1 CP. Wyrmblade is currently sitting pretty with 4 primary VP with 3 secondary, and has 7 out of 12 models remaining with also 1 CP. Moving into turning point 3, the score is currently 9-7. Okay, so moving into turning point 3, I'm feeling pretty good about T2. It was a little bit back and forth, and my guys are pretty... I have a few who are pretty injured, but I got a lot of options, especially with my Cryptek right now. And I feel like I've got a really good chance to do something cool here. I have really good board control. I control basically the middle plus a little bit. So Blaine moving forward is going to be pretty difficult. He has me on one of the flanks, but I think I got a pretty good chance here. I'm feeling really good. I've been able to start him from primaries. He's doing pretty good on his tac ops, but I feel at this turning point, I'm going to be doing all right. I feel like I can I think I got a chance. I really do. But we'll see. Who knows? Anyway, let's see what Blaine has to think.
All right, coming out of Turning Point 2 here, it was, in my opinion, a little bit more uneventful than I thought it was going to be. Just some whiffed shots coming my way and going his way, or some good saves on his part. But I think I'm behind on objectives kind of bad right now. I think I'm like 3 behind on objectives right now. But I have a tiny lead on tac ops, and I think I can probably swing it this turning point by just killing enough of his stuff that he only gets 2 reanimates. And like, if I can kill enough stuff at the beginning, I think I should be able to squeeze out objectives later in the turning point. but it's gonna be a little tricky, especially seeing what he does first, because I think he's gonna activate his Cryptek first, because he doesn't want it to die to the Kellermorph immediately. And I kind of was thinking about it a little bit beforehand, and I think he's probably gonna force the Overwatch with command on the grenade and try to kill my seismic cannon, or my mining laser heavy gunner, and then possibly move up on the vantage point and get a shot with the onto the Kellermorph or somebody else with his leader. So I don't know what else is going to happen after that. I have a game plan. I've got a lot of operatives that can squeeze out some damage still because they're all concealed and have cult ambush up. But we're just going to have to see how this plays out. I'm going to need to get on his objectives very, very quickly. So yeah, let's do it.
Moving into the strategy phase of Turning Point 3, both Blaine and I decide to pass on strategic ploys. Moving to Tac Ops, Blaine reveals Subversive Control, and then picks the Immortal I have in the middle for his stock target. For my first activation, I decide to activate my Cryptek. And using his command ability, I command my Immortal to attack Blaine's Heavy Gunner with my Devourer Nanoscarabs. Throwing the grenade, I'm rolling 4s on 3s, and I get a crit and a hit, but 2 misses. I decide to spend a CP to reroll, and I get myself another hit. Blaine takes 1 for cover and rolls 2 additional saves, so only 3 damage goes through. I then decide to cast Nightmare Shroud, and then I make a shooting attack against Blaine's Kellermorph with my Abyssal Lance. Rolling 5s on 4s because of injury, with 2-2, AP2, Blast and Splash, I get myself a crit and 2 hits. I decide to spend another CP to reroll, and I get myself another hit. Now this would have been an amazing attack, but Blaine unfortunately has invul saves on his Kellermorph. Using his invul saves, Blaine rolls 2 saves, so only 5 damage goes through. Lastly, I fly my leader over and behind a barricade.
My first activation of this turning point will be the Kellermorph who barely survived by the skin of his teeth. He's going to take a shot at the Immortal who threw the grenade. I wind up rolling 4 normal hits and a fail. Nate only rolls 2 saves, which thankfully puts enough damage through to kill that Immortal for good. Feeling lucky, I decide to move my Kellermorph behind the Despotek and Immortal that's on the objective, and take a second shot within 6 inches. I end up only rolling 2 normal hits and a crit, but finally being able to retain critical hits means Rending and P1 go into effect, turning that normal hit into a crit. Nate rolls for his defense dice and only gets 2 this time because of P1. He rolls both and only gets 1 3-up save, taking 8 damage total. Once again, Nate uses reanimation on this Immortal from his plasma site so he can get it back hopefully next turn.
Activating my Despotek next, I charge Blaine's grenade launcher. Before he charges, I use his Demand ability on himself, so he does get a reroll in the coming combat. Attacking with his bayonet, I'm rolling 4s on 2s, and I roll 2 hits and 2 misses. But because I used his Demand ability, I get a reroll and I get myself a crit. Blaine misses all of his attacks, so all the damage dice go through and I kill his grenade launcher. Now usually we would remove the dead model, but because he's under the stronghold, we couldn't really get to him, so just trust me, he's dead.
My Icon Bearer, longing to taste the metallic blood of the Necrons, puts another shot into the Accelerator plasma site. I roll my attack dice and get 2 normal hits and a crit. Nate, seeing that this just means the plasma site dies, decides not to roll his defense dice and just takes the plasma site off the board.
Activating my Prentek next, I scramble over the junk pile and decide to shoot Blaine's other gunner. Attacking with his Arcane Conduit, I roll 4s on 3s with AP1. I get myself a crit and a hit. Blaine is able to roll 2 saves, so he saves the crit and 3 damage goes through.
My next activation is my Mining Laser Heavy Gunner, who is going to take a very long shot into Nate's Psychomancer. Unfortunately, due to injury, my Mining Laser only gets 2 crits, which in retrospect isn't that bad. Nate then proceeds to roll his defense dice and only gets 1 3-up save, and takes a whopping 12 damage, which kills his Psychomancer. I then follow this up by rewarding that Heavy Gunner and moving him into safety behind the oil rig. Nate once again uses reanimation protocol here to put his reanimation token down for his Psychomancer.
Next up is my Reanimator Plasmacyte, and I simply just fly him on top of the Orc Stronghold.
Once again activate both my Neophytes with shotguns, and my first Neophyte that activates is going to be the one that has been doing all the work in the background, coming up and taking a shot with his shotgun into Nate's Apprentek. I roll 2 normal hits and a crit, and finally being able to utilize his Cult Ambush, reroll my fail into another normal hit. Nate rolls his defense dice, saves only 1, killing his Apprentek without reanimation up. The second of the 2 Neophytes, seeing his brother valiantly charge into battle, is just going to move behind a barricade and pass.
Lastly, I activate one of my Immortals who shoots into Blaine's Kellermorph with his Gauss Blaster. Rolling 4s on 3s, I get 2 hits, but Blaine is only able to roll 1 crit save, and just enough damage goes through to kill his Kellermorph. After killing his operative, I then charge that Immortal into Blaine's Icon Bearer.
Finally, it's time for my Sanctus Sniper to activate once again. He comes around the corner and takes a shot into Nate's Despotek. I go to roll my attack dice and get 3 normal hits and a crit. Due to the mortal wounds that the crit does, Nate takes his Despotek off the table. For my last activation of this turning point, my Weber Gunner finally gets to do something, moving on to the objective nearest him and securing it for 1 APL.
At the end of Turning Point 3, it's time to roll some reanimation protocols. And I'm able to reanimate both operatives, each of them coming in with 8 wounds. Now it's time for initiative, and Blaine rolls a 6 and I roll a 3, so Blaine gets initiative yet again. So at the end of Turning Point 3, things are still very, very close. Heirotek is currently sitting at 8 primary VP with 3 secondary. I currently have 2 out of 8 models on the board, technically 4 with reanimation protocol, but I have 0 CP. Wyrmblade currently has 8 primary VP with 4 secondary and 5 out of their 12 models, but with 1 CP. The game is still neck and neck with an 11 to 12 split. Let's see how this ends in Turning Point 4.
Alright, just came out of Turning Point 3. I think that was probably the best turning point out of this game for me. It kind of brought me back up to where Nate was for VPs and stuff. I'm currently ahead by 1. All Nate has to do is score 2 TAC op points and flip 2 main objectives to tie this game. So I'm very worried about how close it is. My only mission is to basically stop him from getting TAC ops realistically, because I don't think I can stop him from getting objectives. So we'll just have to see how this is, or how this goes. So let's just hope we don't tie it, because that would be a crazy ending for this game.
Okay, so Turning Point 3 was a rough one, that's for sure. Losing 2 models before they could even activate really kept me here. Blaine's Kellermorph did some fantastic work. And I wasn't able to kill the landing laser, so unfortunately my Cryptic died. So, however, he is back with more wounds, so can't complain too much there. But as a whole, I'm going to do my best to tie the game. I really don't think I can pull ahead, though. Blaine's got initiative. I'm feeling I want to lose the Immortal I just brought back. His Aegis probably want to shoot into it. Best thing I can hope for is that my Cryptic wins across the board. I can recapture a point. I move my Plasmacyte onto a different advantage. I try and score as much as I can on TAC ops. Primaries are going to be hard. He really pushed me hard. I only have 1 currently, and he's going to be doing his best to get that back for his TAC op. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be a really close game.
Moving into the strategic phase at Turning Point 4, both Blaine and I pass on playing any ploys. As for TAC ops, Blaine designates my Immortal in the middle for his stock target.
To start off the last turning point here, I activate both of those heroic Neophytes, the first of which is just going to charge over the scramble pile into engagement range of that Immortal. The second of which, however, is going to valiantly move within 2 inches of the Psychomancer and blast him with his shotgun. I proceed to roll 3 normal hits, re-rolling the 2 because of Cult Ambush into another normal hit. I also decide to spend 1 CP on Coiled Serpent here, just to try to see if I can get the kill on the Psychomancer. Unfortunately, Nate rolls 2 crit saves and only takes 6 damage, which puts his Psychomancer to 2.
Activating my Cryptek first, I move him out from behind the barricade and then cast Nightmare Shroud. I then command my Immortal to fight Blaine's Icon Bearer. Attacking with his bayonet, I roll 4s on 3s and get 3 hits. Blaine rolls 2 hits, and I decide to spend a CP to re-roll and get a crit. I start combat by attacking Blaine with a crit, and he hits me back with one of his normal hits. I then parry his other normal hit and attack with the wrest, killing his Icon Bearer. Now, here's another example of a model we couldn't get out, so just trust me, this guy is also dead. Using my last action, I then tap the point.
With nothing left for him to do, I move the Mining Laser Heavy Gunner up onto the objective to try to contest the Recover Item token.
Activating my Immortal next, I decide to fight one of Blaine's Neophytes. Attacking with his bayonet, rolling 4s on 3s, I get 2 hits, and Blaine also gets 2 hits. I start by hitting Blaine for 3 damage, and then Blaine parries out my other hit, and then hits me for 2.
It's at this moment that I realize that the sniper can take a very, very long-range shot, unobscured underneath the little tentacles of the Psychomancer at the Immortal who is far behind him. In a last-ditch effort to get Nate from controlling his Unearth Artifice token, I put everything I have into this shot, switching my Sanctus Sniper to an engage order for Cult Ambush, and using both Familiar Soulsight and Target Vulnerability to get Lethal 5 up on the shot. I roll a crit and 2 normal hits immediately, re-rolling the 1 because of Cult Ambush into another normal hit, retaining the 5 as a crit and dealing 6 mortal wounds to the Immortal. Nate rolls his defense dice and only gets a crit save and a normal save, unfortunately not saving the operative and killing it, making it one of the longest shots my Sanctus Sniper has ever gotten.
And last but not least, I activate my Plasmacyte Reanimator, who flies down off of the Orc Stronghold and taps the point.
To round out the match here, my Weber Gunner finalizes his activation by moving within 3 inches of the Immortal on that objective, being able to score my last point for stock target.
So, at the end of the game, things were really close. Heirotek finished with 11 primary and 4 secondary, with 3 out of their 8 models on the board. Wyrmblade finished the game with 11 primary and 6 secondary, with 5 out of their 12 models remaining. The final score was 15-17, with Wyrmblade winning the game.
Hi everyone, so the game just ended and wow, what a freaking game. It was close up until the very end. I didn't know who was going to win.
Very back and forth.
Wow, but yeah, overall, a lot of fun. That Kellermorph put in some work.
Kellermorph, the sniper,
yeah,
both put in lots
I could
of
just
work,
not get to those agents fast enough to kind of deny them, and that was, I knew it was going to be rough with how much kind of heavy was on here. That the Kellermorph, or no, not the Kellermorph, the Sanctus. We're just going to sit back and be like, oh, I'm just going to take pot shots the whole game, and it's exactly what he did.
He really didn't do much until that very last shot, like cross
That
the map
last shot, when Blaine says, you're going to hate this Nate, but I was just devastated. I'm like, son of a gun. But again,
yeah,
very fun game, very close. I think this is the best we've ever played either of these teams, probably.
Yeah, probably. I mean, there was just a lot of back and forth, a lot of objective switching, like.
This one, the one with the large scrap pile, constantly flipping back and forth.
Oh yeah, there was a lot going on that objective for sure, and then just kind of back and forth with the reanimation too, because it was like I'd catch a lead, and then all of a sudden reanimation would happen.
They'd be right back, and thankfully
heal,
I did really good with reanimation. They all came back when they needed to. I was very nervous for turning point 4. Like if I didn't get anything, I don't know what I would have done, to be honest, just with one guy out there.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, well, and like turning point 3 was also like the most important for me. Like I said, at the end of turn 2, it was like I needed to bait both reanimations and then just kill stuff, and I was able to do that and get both.
You cleared just enough off where you kind of.
I was kind of able
got a
to.
lead.
Yeah, I was kind of able to just kind of
snowball.
snowball through and Yeah, for sure. Especially going 5-1 on main objectives in the third.
I was
turn, it
feeling really good up until first and second. I was feeling really good. I was denying Blaine a lot of primaries, and I'm like, this if I can just keep this going. And then turn 3, Blaine sweeps in and gets them all but one. And I'm like, oh.
I had to put
Yeah,
threats out there, and you can't deal with them all.
I
so
couldn't.
it's
There
like,
wasn't enough.
That's the best thing about threat projection, and also the fact that Wyrmblade just kind of sits back and hangs out for a little bit until you got to strike.
And that's the hardest thing, is that they were hiding and I just could not get to them. I had no, other than the one grenade, I had no source of indirect. And even the grenade didn't do nothing, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that was just because I rolled really well with
The CP reroll worked really well.
For sure. And it's kind of funny because at the very beginning I wasted a CP on the light terrain being obscuring, thinking that you had an infiltrate scouting out.
I was kind of thinking like, why is he doing this? But okay.
Even at the very beginning, I was like, yeah,
You
I mean,
burned through your CP really quickly in the beginning.
yeah. I was like, at the very beginning, I was like, all I have to do is watch out for the blast and like make sure I don't lose anything turn 1. And then at the end of turn 1, I was like, you didn't have an order flip. I did not need to worry about getting shot.
And I wasn't going to say anything, so I'm just kind of sitting here like...
It was just whatever,
okay.
But yeah, lots of back and forth. Very good game. Yeah, I personally think just a good game. That's all I gotta say.
It was fun, as one of our channel friends had
said. I don't
said.
think I really have anything to say that we could have done differently, or like...
There may be 1 or 2 moves that could have...
but
But like, as a whole...
it was just a very average game of Kill Team. I mean...
Yeah, it was fun. It was back and forth. It was a game where it was close, and those are the best games. They really are.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, if that's all,
I think so.
Yeah. So everybody, like, subscribe, comment. I know one guy. I know it's been a while. We had some technical difficulties.
We actually filmed this originally a few months ago, and then unfortunately we realized we screwed up like half the rolls, and the film was really bad.
Yeah, it was a train wreck. So we decided to refilm it for you guys.
This one turned out far better than the first one.
One guy that had recommended or asked for this matchup a long time ago. Here it finally is. It was a good enough match that I think you'll enjoy watching it. And I mean, everybody else out there watching our videos, make sure to recommend stuff. We have every team.
All but one. We're getting close.
All but one. And as we say in every video, just comment what you guys want to see.
Yeah, we're happy to play it.
Yeah, we're happy to play it. We're happy to repeat teams if necessary.
If you guys want to see a rematch on this as well,
we've got some big plans going on in the background for sub goals and stuff. So keep us growing. Subscribe, comment, share. Anything you can to help us out is really appreciated.
For sure.
But otherwise, stay happy, stay engaged, and keep playing Kill Team.